Here's SickBoy from the Gaminganarchist Collective, and it seems that there's been a convergence, a trifecta of damaged 13-year-old children in the news at the moment that have, over the last year, one's in, I think two's in court and one has just recently happened, has been some tragic deaths that are being linked to video games. Now, this, I'm going to say again, I'm going to debunk this as a complete load of fucking bullshit. Okay, I'm going to go over these three stories briefly, because they're awful. They're awful, and we need to be aware as gamers. I think we need to be aware just how terrible and how shocking these things actually are if we are going to make any kind of positive impact on this, rather than just be bashed by fundamentalist nutjobs that say that games are to blame. So, okay, first one is a young boy, Noah Crooks, who murdered and tried to rape his mother, and then shot her in the head with a .22 rifle because she wouldn't let him play video games. She said he couldn't play Call of Duty anymore because his grades were suffering. So he tried to rape his mum, felt that he somehow couldn't do that, how shocking, and then decided to then shoot her and kill her. Now that is the sign of a fucked up and damaged child, okay? And I'm going to go over the reasons, again, why, from this, but I'm going to make that, well, that is a shocking, dreadful tragedy. That this man, he's a 13-year-old boy, stripped his mother's bottom half of her clothes off, attempted to rape her and then murdered her over being banned on video games. Now, it's not over video games, again. I'm going to explain that in a minute. But that is the first one. Second one, this is from a few weeks ago, but this one happened, I believe it was back last year, I believe. It's just in court now. 14-year-old boy shot his parents in the head after they grounded him. 14-year-old in Washington was charged with attempted murder after he allegedly shot both his parents in the head after they stopped him playing video games. Again, .22 caliber weapon. This is currently in court, and I'll put these links in the description field. Another one is in Scotland, and this one is absolutely dreadful. A 14-year-old father, I'll let that one settle in. I know it's Glasgow, but fuck me. 14-year-old father got into an argument with a boy over Gears of War 3 deathmatch. He found him, they met up, and he killed him. Killed a 13-year-old boy. Go through this again. I believe it's tragic. It's a tragic, terrible thing. Now, this is what worries me. There's a statement here. Now, this is terrible, and it clearly shows there are some disturbed and damaged children in our society. Certainly, pubescent children going through puberty. Clearly, there is something wrong with the way we are dealing with children, or some people are, because it seems that around that age where puberty kicks in, these children are not knowing how to deal with their hormones, and they are resulting in terrible violence and loss of life. In this case, Scottish Police Federation Chairman Brian Doherty, and this is what made me want to comment on this, seems concerned that the offender's gaming habits were related to the crime. These games are rated 18 and shouldn't be played by children at his young age, but online gaming may be outside their parents' knowledge. We need to look again at what we can do to stop this. Now, this is the crux of the matter for me. Now, these tragedies are terrible, okay, and I don't believe video games would have changed the outcome of this. It could have been about anything. It could have been about reading books. It could have been argued over a football game. It could have been if these children are clearly unhinged, because again, I have played video games. I've said this before. My whole life, since I was a very small child, played video games. I have never harmed, outside of a sporting event, another individual. Outside of competing with someone in a physical sport, I have never harmed another human being. Okay? I can win or lose or be berated or teased, and I would never, ever murder somebody or cause serious bodily harm to these people. These children are deranged. They are not indicative of video games or of gamers. And people need to realise that to say that this is down to video games to blame, that's bullshit. And also, arguably, it also argues the gun, that these three cases kind of argue the gun thing, because there is a why the fuck, the boy who tried to rape his mother and then murdered her was given that .22 gun for his, I believe it's his 11th birthday. Who the fuck buys their 11-year-old child a gun for their fucking birthday? Really? I mean, take them to the range, allow them access to a gun, shoot a target. I'm cool with that. You know, give your kid a fucking gun? Are you fucking insane? Why would you fucking do that? Why would you do that? You wonder why this child is so deranged that he snapped and attempted to rape his own mother at 13. That is some poor fucking parenting. That child was clearly deranged and needed help. And needed better parenting. Because if they didn't realise that their child reacts that way to discipline, they needed to deal with their discipline in a different way. Because if that's something like that, just saying you can't play games anymore, make someone snap, attempt to rape their own mum, that is something deeply wrong with that child. And clearly the discipline wasn't in place, and clearly he was badly brought up and not treated. Now, it's hard, again with the whole Adam Lanza thing, it's hard to be harsh on the parents, I feel, when they're the victims. In this case, the mother is the victim of her own poor upbringing of her child. She failed to bring up her child properly, her child murdered her. That's tragic, and no one deserves to be killed for their mistakes, but she clearly, her and her husband clearly failed to look after their child. Now, with regards to the case, again, the boy shot his parents in the head. Again, poor fucking parenting. Really poor parenting. That's that kind of dangerous suburban parenting. That's the kind of Columbine nutjob parenting. Now, the case in Glasgow is a very different one. Those of you who don't know Glasgow, now, Scottish people who watch this, I've got a lot of Scottish friends. I'm very fond of Scotland. I'm fond of parts of Glasgow. More fond of Edinburgh, let's face it. It's a nicer city. But Glasgow is the poorest, is one of the most deprived and poorest cities in Britain. It has the biggest drug culture, one of the biggest teenage pregnancy issues, one of the biggest cases of poverty, malnutrition. I think the average life expectancy of a Scottish male in Glasgow is about 55 years old. That is fucked. There are people in the third world who have a better life expectancy than that. There are countries in the third world where people live longer than live in Glasgow. And there is an issue with not enough jobs, too much alcoholism and drug addiction. Because it was it's kind of like Detroit if you're from the US. It's an industrial it was a shipbuilding as opposed to car building, but it was a shipbuilding city. Everybody worked, it was all manual labour, and then all of a sudden it all got shut down. And what it leads to was already people who were big drinkers, as they'd work hard and they would traditionally drink a shitload, and it turned to essentially drug abuse and poverty. And this is what the problem is in Glasgow, not 14-year-olds murdering 14-year-olds over video games. It's over videos, not because of video games. They fell out over a video game. The fact that he could kill, the fact that he was at 14 and he's already a father tells you a great deal about what is wrong with this kid in the first fucking place. This kid is clearly damaged. This child was clearly dangerously, poorly brought up. It's insane that he is a father at 14 years old. It is more insane that he took an argument with someone he knew online over multiplayer fucking Gears of War and murdered him. This is terrible. What the people of Glasgow and the police of Glasgow perhaps need to be doing is looking at what's happening with your underprivileged children. Not looking and going, I'll tell you what, video games, we should do with video games. You know what you should do? One, how is somebody... Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't know enough about this child, but I'm going to take a wild guess. He's going to be the British equivalent of trailer trash. What the fuck is he doing online on Xbox? Why is he not out playing football? Running around climbing trees. I know there's no fucking trees in Glasgow, but you know, this city has such problems with malnutrition of children, with education of children, with poor fucking parenting, drug addiction. Now, I'm just going to say, if you're from Glasgow, and this does not apply to you now, I know it doesn't apply to the good parts of Glasgow, but there is a section of Glasgow that where it's rough, it is so fucking rough, it's horrible and it's horrific, and that is an area of Britain that does need to be tackled with the case of poverty. Don't just look for an easy fucking cop-out and blame it on video games. The police fucking commission should be looking at what to do with poor parenting, what to do with delinquent children who fuck at 13. That is what you need to look at. Not only who fuck at 13, but clearly don't understand the concept of protection. I'm not one to say that 13-year-olds should be having sex, but fuck me if they are. They should at least understand that they should be bagging it up and taking it home with them because they don't want to be saddled with a kid at 14. Lo and behold, and there's a child in this world. There is another child. This child is a parent. He's now a murderer. He now has a child. That child exists. That child has to grow up knowing that his father, who was also a child, is a fucking murderer. Nobody deserves to be born into that kind of fucking stigma. This is a problem. It's a societal problem. It is not one that you can point and blame and go, it's that game. You cannot. You absolutely cannot turn around and blame this all on Gears of War. Blame it all on parents, maybe, who give their children access to online games. What do you mean it's online so the parents don't know? They still have to buy the fucking game. Do you not understand the concept of gaming? You have to have Gears of War to play it online. If you have it, you shouldn't have it. 13-year-olds should not have Gears of War. It is a viscerally violent game. It is the sort of game that's for older teenagers and adults to play when you know it's fucking ridiculous. That game is too hyper fucking violent for children. It has no... Even Call of Duty has a sense of fucking pathos to it compared to bloody Gears of War. It is it's one of the most brutal games. There is no reason 13-year-old children should be playing it. And it is not the reason why that child was disturbed. That child was disturbed long before he picked up a controller. Don't seek for an easy solution. We need to look at the fact that humanity is a problem. We as the human race are not as evolved or enlightened as we'd like to believe. There are members of our communities and our society who are little more than Neanderthals. Men who are overly macho, who seek fights and physical fights over arguments over nothing. Undereducated, over testosterone, violent fuckwits. We have women who are nothing more than cum buckets who pop out fucking kids left, right and centre. That is a problem with our society. People who still live like fucking cavemen. That is what these people are. They are acting like cavemen. People who can utilise their higher brain functions and decide and determine when children are right for them. Yeah, people make mistakes. People end up with kids young or when they don't plan them. And that's fine. That is not something that I'm going to pop out. But it's a difference between having a child, not expecting a child, even having a child young, and being those kind of classless fucking cum dumpsters, or those fucking Neanderthal men who treat women with no respect, treat their children, treat them like they're something to be avoided because they cost you money. Deadbeat fucking parents. That is the problem with society. Too many Cro-Magnon fuck nuggets, and too many women quite willing to have it bashed over the fucking head and dragged back to the cave and pull some fucking I've got a latex allergy bullshit, or I don't want to be on the pill because I don't want to get fat, yet you've got fucking 5 kids with 4 different dads. This is what's wrong with society, and this is what we need to address. We need to address what's wrong with this attitude. And that's nothing to do with gaming. I need to bring this up because I haven't brought it up in the past, but this is what I believe is wrong with our society. I've said in the past many times that gaming is not responsible. This is what I believe is responsible. People who refuse to raise themselves up, refuse to seek education. Even if you can't go to school, even if you had a problem as a kid, go to a fucking library, go talk to people, go Google shit on the internet, but at least be civilised, at least be a human fucking being. These children were not suffering from PTSD. There is no reason for them to be at the state that they are, except for the fact that they've been failed by society. And by society, I mean their parents. But clearly, as a society, there is something wrong if in the Western world, where we consider ourselves highly enlightened and all this shit, and look at other places in the world and go, oh, how barbaric they are. Right, well, we've got children. How is that any different to Ugandan child soldier? What you have there is disturbed and violent child committing atrocities. How can you stand on your laurels and look down on your nose at another section of humanity when, as human beings, we are fucking vile? We have got shit wrong with us. But what we don't have is violent escapism in video games is not the problem. Education, both emotional and academic, is what people need to raise us up beyond the testosterone-fueled apes of men and these skanky bitches. They need to be sorted out. They need to be fucking stamped out. That is how we fix it. And it's not just those poor people, because it's also those kind of middle-class fuck nuggets who neglect their children. Maybe I've gone off a little bit too much on a rant on one side of things, so maybe I should just, before I finish off, just have another at the other guys. These fucking white-collar tosspots who don't see their children as something to be cherished and something to pay attention to. I've got a career, okay? I've got a good career. I'm happy out working. I don't want to go into my private life, but I don't have kids currently. But if I did, if I had a child, if I had a son or daughter or more than one child, I would cherish that child and I would want to speak to them and understand and teach them about the world and do it in a way that they would instill wonder in the beauty of this world. What are you doing locking your kid in a fucking room with an Xbox and then blame the fucking Xbox? Buying them a gun and then wondering why you shot your wife and try to fuck her. You have failed your children. We, as a society, fail our children. Something needs to be done about it. And the reason that I argue so vehemently against it being video games is not because I play video games and they're going to take my games away. I don't give a fuck. If it was for the betterment, if they could prove that video games could be banned and it would save children from murdering children, I'd probably accept that. I would. Let that sink in. Think about that for a minute. If someone could prove video games made a significant majority violent, you would probably be in agreement, if you're a reasonable human being, that restriction of that item, the same as with weaponry, should be a sensible option. However, there's no fucking evidence for it whatsoever. There is no evidence, there is no goddamn proof, and that is why I stand against it. If you could sell me, if you could prove to me that Gears of War made people into murderers, I'd say ban Gears of War. But they don't. It doesn't. There's no evidence that it ever has, and there will be no evidence that it ever will. It doesn't. If anything, it is just something that people enjoy to do, and that, yeah, people with violent tendencies will enjoy to play violent games. I don't have violent tendencies. I do have an explosive temper, but I do enjoy playing video games, yeah. I don't get an emotional reaction out of it. I just like playing it. It's just fun pastime. I'm not going, yeah, kill him. I do it for a laugh, maybe. I'll get heated with a laugh and I'm playing with friends, but there's something wrong. There is something wrong with these people. It's not what they're doing. It's not what they're playing. It's what made them the way they are. And we as a society need to learn that. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for listening. That was fairly dark, but I just wanted to get that out there. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you guys later.